All right, welcome to your notes of 5.2 using intercepts. Essential question. Explain the process to find the x and y intercept of 4x plus 2y equals 16. All right, we have two vocabulary words, the y-intercept and the x-intercept. The y-intercept is the y-coordinate of the point where the graph intersects the y-axis. And the x-coordinate of this point is always 0. So your y-intercept is going to have an ordered pair of 0, y, whatever that is. And notice the word intercept and intersect have the same prefix. That's the word that means cross something, to cross a line or to cross an ocean or to cross a bridge. Intercept, intersect. Then you have your x-intercept, which is the x-coordinate of the point where the graph crosses the x-axis. And the y-coordinate of this point is always 0. Okay? So it would be x, 0. That's for your x-intercept, and that's for your y-intercept. So if you were to see this on a graph, it would look like this. Now let's pull up some graph paper here. So say I have my, there we go. There's my coordinate plane. There we go. There's my x and y axis. So let's say I have a line that crosses like that. Remember, we always put our arrows on there. So this would be 1, 2, what did I do? Sorry about that. I've got a new toy here, so I'm just learning how to use it. So we've got 3. So this is my y-axis, so my line crosses at 3. So my y-intercept is 0, 3. Okay, because my x didn't go left or right. And then I see -1, -2, -3. Let's make sure that really crosses there. There you go. So that means that we're crossing the x-axis at -3. So my x-intercept is -3, 0. Okay? So if you're just looking at a graph, this is all you would do is, where does the line cross? It's simply look at it and count. Okay? You can also use an equation to find your intercept. Remember yesterday's notes, we had what was called the standard form of a line. And we had that. That standard form of line was ax plus by equals c. Okay? We're going to fill in a graphic organizer here. If you are given this line right here, step 1, to find the x-intercept, what do? Intercept. What do? Well, solve for y equals 0. So the y equals 0 to find the x-intercept. Remember, over here, if I knew what the x was, my y was 0. So if I go ahead and plug in 0 for y, I'll get my x-intercept. And the reverse is true. If I plug in 0 for x, I'll get my y-intercept. Okay? So that was step 1 of our graphic organizer. Step 2, to find the y-intercept, solve for x equals 0. Okay? And then once you've solved for both, you got to graph the line. So your third step would be to plot both points and connect to make a line. Okay, now that's all of it in words. Let's actually see how that looks with the math. Okay. Let me go back to my whiteboard here. I'm going to use the equation 2x minus 4y equals 8. Now notice this does match my standard form of a line. This is ax minus by equals c. So there's my standard form. So if I want to find the x-intercept, I'm going to put in 0 for y. Okay? So when I'm doing this, I'm going to solve every one of these problems twice. This isn't just solve it once and move on. You got to solve each problem once for the x-intercept and once for the y. So if I'm going to find the, there's my pen, x-intercept. Now remember our graph organizer said to find the x-intercept, we're going to solve for y equals 0. So I'm going to plug in 0 for y. So there's my y. So I'm going to have 2x minus 4 times 0 equals 8. 4 times 0 is nothing. So I have 2x equals 8. Then I have divide by 2, x equals 4. So that means my x-intercept is 4. So my graph's going to cross my grid or my coordinate plane on the x-axis at 4. And if I'm going to write that as a point, it would be 4, 0. Okay? Then I'm going to solve the whole thing again for x equals 0. So this will be for my y-intercept. Okay? So I have 2 times 0 minus 4y equals 8. 2 times 0 is 0, so I have negative 4y equals 8. Divide by negative 4, divide by negative 4 on both sides, cancels out, y equals negative 2. And if I write that as a point, it's going to be 0, negative 2. And then I would graph it. That's step 3. Remember our graphic organizer said step 1, find the x-intercept. Step 2, find the y-intercept. Step 3, plot the points and connect. Here we go. So I've got, let's find my marker here. I'll use purple. I've got one point here, and I've got my other point right here. So let's put our graph paper on. Alrighty. Draw my y-axis, draw my x-axis. And my points were 4, 0, and 0, negative 2. So I've got 4, 0, 4, 0, and 0, negative 2. Okay? So remember, this is my x, this is my y, and then you just count in your graph. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and these are my negatives: 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7, negative 8. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there we go. And there's my negative 8 on that side. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 up here. Alright, let's plot our points. Let's use blue. 4, 0, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm not going to go up and down, so I'm going to put my dot right there. And then I've got 0, negative 2, so I'm going to start at 0. The first number tells me I don't go left or right. I just go down negative 2. And I put my dot. And then we connect the dots La, 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 la. Connect the dots. And there's my line. And it shows that I crossed the x-axis at 4 and I crossed the y-axis at -2. So those are my intercepts. All right, let's tackle a word problem. All right, here's our word problem. To thaw a specimen stored at -25 degrees, the temperature of refrigeration tank is raised 5 degrees every hour. So they're trying to unfreeze it by thawing it. The temperature in the tank after X hours can be described by the function, there it is, okay? So honestly, I don't really care about all the rest of the information. It's already written the function for me. Who cares what the rest of it says? They've written the function. The only reason why I'm going to need to know the rest of the information is to answer B, okay? But we'll worry about that in a minute. A says to graph the function and find its intercepts. Okay, so our graphic organizer said step 1, solve for x equals 0, then solve for y equals 0, then graph. So here we go. We have f of x. Remember, f of x means nothing except just a placeholder of y. So I can also change that to say y. Same thing. So we've got f of x equals -25 plus 5x. And I'm going to replace that x with 0 to find my y-intercept. So I'm going to change this f of x to say y equals -25 plus 5 times 0. So this is going to cancel, and I get y equals -25. There it is. There's my my x-intercept. There's where my, sorry, I'm getting all tongue-tied. That's my y-intercept, okay? That's where my line crosses the y-axis. It crosses at -25. We knew that because that's the temperature that the specimen was originally stored at. Alrighty, let's do for the x-intercept. So I have f of x equals -25 plus 5x. So I'm going to replace that f of x with y, and I know my y is 0. So that equals -25 plus 5x. So I'm going to add 25 to both sides, and I get 25 equals 5x. I'm going to divide by 5 on both sides. Divide by 5, and I get 5 equals x. So that means it's going to cross the x-axis at 5. It's going to cross the y-axis at -25. So I'm going to write that as 0, -25. And over here, that's going to be 5, 0. Okay? Let's graph that. Remember, I had 0, -25, and then I had 5, 0. So it's going to be a big old graph. So I'm going to get some bigger graph paper. There we go. I need more dots. There's my y-axis, and there's my x-axis. Try and keep it on that line there. So that's my x, and that's my y. And I'm going to plot my points. So I'm going to go to 5, 0. So I'm going to start at 0, and I'm going to go to 5. Oops. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to go to 0, negative 25. And I'm going to count by 5s on here because I don't have 25 times. So let's count by 5, 10, 15, 20, negative 25. So that was negative 15, that was negative 5. So I'm going to put a dot right there. And then connect the dots. La, 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 la. Okay. And then remember, we have to go back to our problem. And it told us, what does each intercept represent? Alrighty, sorry for the interruption there. The announcements came on. The next part of this question asks you, what does each intercept represent? So we know the first thing it's talking about is temperature, and we get that from right here in the problem. And the other part of the problem is talking about time, hours. Okay, so when we look at our graph, this negative 25 was our temperature. So that intercept represents our starting temp. Starting temp. Meaning at 0 hours, our specimen was negative 25 degrees. Okay? And our X represents our time. Okay? And we knew that from right here where it said X hours. It's telling you the X is time. So if you weren't sure, right there it told you. X is hours. So then this means time. So this is after 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4, and 5 hours. So this intercept right here, the x-intercept, means after 5 hours, our specimen will be 0 degrees. Okay? At 0 hours, it was negative 25. And then you can follow your line and see that at about 2 hours, it was negative 25 degrees. And at about 4 hours, it was a little less than negative 10 degrees, or 10 below 0. So that's your word problem. Happy time with your math. Enjoy.